So moving on from the essential components I mentioned in the last video, that was your CPU, your motherboard, your RAM and your hard disk, or your hard disks if you choose to have more than one like I did. There's two more key ingredients that we need to be able to get the thing up and running and powered up. That's going to be your case, or your chassis is the correct name for it, and your power supply. Obviously, whatever you do, you're going to need your keyboard and mouse and screen and all the rest of it, but I'll talk about that separately. I'm just talking in these series at the minute about the stuff that actually goes inside the box. So everything that's outside the box I'm going to talk about in another video, just in case you're thinking, well, hang on a minute, I've nothing to type on and I can't see it. I'm aware of that, I've not made a boo-boo, but I'm going to do it in a separate video. So your case, your chassis, if you can see, I don't know how the perspective comes across, this is quite a large case. That's at least, it's greater than the length of my forearm. It's almost probably half the length of my full arm. If you can see the detail as well, you might be able to see, and if you can't see, I'll tell you that most of the case is just empty space. I could probably say that 80-90% or 85% of that case is just empty. I could easily have got a smaller case and put those same components in a smaller case, which would have been a lot easier, took up less space, would have I've had more space on my desk. That doesn't really matter because I don't store it on my desk. But for most people's practical needs, you don't want to have a case that's too big. Now, why have I chosen such a big case? Two reasons. The main reason when I first decided to put this PC together was for cooling reasons. Now, the more space you've got inside the box, the cooler your computer is going to run, assuming that you've got the correct cooling thing set up as well. I'll talk about that. But if everything's crammed into a small space, there's no room for that hot air to go, and it builds up and it makes everything run a little bit hotter. And because I was building this particularly to do music and audio work on, I wanted something that was very quiet. Now, when the inside of your computer gets hot, what happens is, normally on modern computers and software, the fans run faster. So you might notice sometimes on a computer, if you're playing games, or even if you've got a games console, sometimes you'll hear it going. That's because it's working hard, or the heat levels build up to such a point that the fans have got to push a little bit harder. So by giving that extra space inside the case, I was making that sacrifice. I'm happy to live with a bigger case and not have the fans working as hard and have a quieter environment, particularly if you're recording. So if I'm recording this video now, obviously the computer's not on, or if I was recording audio onto the computer has to be on. The last thing I want when I'm trying to record a quality take for a song or for a lesson or for whatever, last thing I want is those fans kicking in sounding like a vacuum cleaner. So that was one of the conscious decisions I made in getting a bigger case. Also, another benefit is it adds to the expandability and future proofing of the system going forward. Whether you can see or not, there's loads of space for me to install. At the moment, I've got 4 hard drives installed at the minute, plus an optical drive. I could probably put double or treble that amount in if I wanted to and have extra storage. I've got the expandability for that on the motherboard I mentioned earlier. I've got 6 what they call SATA or serial ATA ports. I'm only using 4 at the minute, so I could easily pop 2 more drives into there and expand it further. As I say, luckily, because now I've put a graphics card in, I didn't build it that way. I'll talk about the graphics card shortly, but that's the big thing there that takes up all that length and girth. I didn't start with that, but because of the size of it, if I'd have had a tiny little case, that would never have fitted in. So again, it's helped me by having that big case to keep the noise levels down and to make sure that I can upgrade it in future like I am doing now without any problems. Also with the case, it's one of those things where I could have got a cheaper one. This one really appealed to me because you can strip it down completely. You can see now I've got both sides off. You probably can't see I've got the top off. The shiny silver bit at the back, that tray, that entire thing comes out so that when you're building it or changing stuff on it, you can lay it flat on a desk with your motherboard on and everything and work on it nicely without being cramped having to work inside a little case. It came with extra bits and gubbins and frames on here. I didn't need them. I could have. That's where I would put my extra drives. So I took them out. So it's modular. It's removable. And the final thing in terms of this case is the size of it supports me being able to use larger fans than what you might normally find. A lot of the smaller fans, they might be 60mm or 80mm or something like that in diameter. The size of this case easily supports the big size fans, which are 120mm fans. Might sound like a bit of a contradiction, that I don't like noise, so why do I want big fans? Well, the science of it is the larger your fan, the slower it needs to turn to move the same amount of air. So my big fans can spin quite slowly compared to a little fan half the size. I don't know the maths, but let's say it would have to spin at twice the speed if it's half the size. I'm not sure on that. So the faster your fan is spinning, the more noise you're going to get. So I want my fans to be spinning as slowly as possible to keep the noise levels down. When it's a little bit different now, I've got this GPU and this graphics card, but other than that, when I switch this thing on, you wouldn't know it's on. It's almost entirely silent. Forgot to mention in the previous video, one of the features of the motherboard is something we call passive cooling. A lot of motherboards have a little fan on what they call the motherboard chipset. And it's a tiny little thing, and that can get quite noisy for cooling. But this doesn't have a little fan on. It's got passive measures of cooling, like a heat sink, which is a piece of metal that just radiates out like the radiator in your house, and it allows the heat just to disperse into the air. Finally, with the fans in the case, I've only got two fans in. I've got one at the front of the case, one at the back of the case, and I've got to be careful, or you've got to be careful about the orientation of the fans into which way they blow the air. I want one fan blowing the air into the case, so an inlet fan, if that's the name for it, and the other fan is blowing the air out of the case. So I've got nice airflow going through the case. If they were both working against each other, I wouldn't have that airflow going through, and the cooling wouldn't be as effective. So my front fan is sucking the air in. My back fan here, which is right behind the hot stuff, the CPU, the memory, and it's right above the GPU, and heat rises. So this is the hot area. It's blasting that air straight out of the case as efficiently as possible. So all that works together really nicely for me in terms of the case design. The other thing, the PSU, the power supply, we need that to provide electricity to the computer and to allow it to run. So you can't really see that's hidden in this section here. Again, I paid a little bit more for it, maybe about 20 quid more than what I could have got a similar one for, but this again is a passive cooled power supply, so there's no fans in it. It just uses those heat sinks like your radiators to let the hot air dissipate. If you've got a gaming computer, maybe that type of power supply wouldn't be enough, because you can only get so much power by doing it that way. I don't know, nowadays they might have better technology, but this is quite a powerful power supply. It's 650 watts, I think, which was at the time more than I ever thought I would need when I bought it, because I didn't have much in the PC. But luckily, again, because I was thinking for the future, I just thought I'll just get one that's just a little bit more powerful than what I think I might ever need, just in case. And now I've had to put this graphics card in. I needed the extra power because these things are very power hungry. When you're running them, depending on which ones you've got anyway. But this one's actually got two power connectors going to it. That's how hungry this little guy is. So as soon as I put that in, obviously I needed the extra power. Just quickly, before I forgot the case, another great feature, I've got this in front of the intake fan, which is an air filter. Dust is your enemy. One thing I've done whilst I've been doing these renovations on this PC is give it a good thorough clean as well. The reason why dust is a bad thing is because it gets stuck on those heat sinks, those radiators, and it clogs them all up, and when it clogs them all up, they don't work as well and they don't cool as well. So nice and clean means your cooling is going to be better, and it's nice to be clean, isn't it, anyway? So I've given the whole thing a good clean. I use compressed air to clean it because it blows the dust away quite nicely. I'm lucky, I've got a compressor down in the garage, I can just do it. A word of warning, if you're going to do that method, don't blast it at full pressure because you can damage things. Just want a slight blow on it and that will blow the dust off. That's all you need to do. You don't end up, you know, over spinning the fans and damaging the bearings or anything else in your computer. And also be aware that a big cloud of dust will appear, which is why I took the PC down into the garage to do that. So I didn't get covered in dust and my room wasn't full of dust. So it's lovely, nice and clean now. That's one of the things that I thought I'd do whilst I was working on it. So it should run cooler, which means it should run quieter, which is great. Because the final thing that I've added in the upgrades might affect that, and I'm going to talk about those upgrades in the next video. That's going to be the hard drive updates that I'm doing at the minute, and also this GPU that I've decided to put in purely for the reasons of video editing. I'll explain that in the next video.